Welcome to Law Next. Today's episode is another one I recorded live at the Legal Marketing Association annual conference in New Orleans, where I sat down with Jason Noble, President and Chief of Product Strategy at ICON. ICON is a legal technology company focused on helping law firms win more business, specifically by bringing order and intelligence to the proposal and RFP response process. That means helping firms capture and manage their experience data, automate the assembly of pitches and proposals, and use AI to draft better, faster responses to client requests for proposals. Have you ever watched a law firm's marketing and business development teams scramble to pull together a competitive proposal, hunting down attorney bios, digging up relevant matters from a spreadsheet somewhere, coordinating with partners who have no time? You understand why this is a problem worth solving. We'll get into how ICON works, how AI has transformed what's possible in this space, and where Jason sees the RFP process itself as headed in a world where agents may eventually be talking to agents. I hope you enjoy it. This is Bob Ambrogi, and this is Law Next, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. Before we get to any of that, please take this moment to hear from the sponsors who so generously support this podcast. Reclaim your time with Practice Panther, the all-in-one legal practice management software trusted by tens of thousands of attorneys worldwide. With automated time tracking, secure client portals, and customizable workflows, you'll transform non-billable administrative tasks into streamlined processes. Practice Panther's intuitive platform handles everything from client intake to payment processing, allowing you to focus on what you do best, which is practicing law. Visit PracticePanther.com today to start your free trial and discover why leading firms choose Practice Panther. Welcome back to Law Next. So today I am talking with Jason Noble, who's the President and Chief of Product at ICON, and we are here live at the Legal Marketing Association in New Orleans. Before anything else, how have you enjoyed the conference? How's it been going for you?
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's always great to connect with friends and meet new folks. I think this year New Orleans is an interesting town. I think it's pretty nice. So all in all, very good.
New Orleans is a great place to be.
Yeah.
So I want to talk more about ICON, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are. What's your career been like?
Yeah, so I actually started as a developer in the mid-90s. So I was actually writing very early versions of online banking, going back all the way back to something called MFC, which was Microsoft Foundation classes with C++. And so long ago. Since then, I moved more into a consulting role. So I started in 97, 98, started to do more consulting, and obviously went through the .com and, built a bunch of online commerce applications using a variety of technologies. But kind of around 2000, 2001, I started to focus in heavily on knowledge management and the tools and capabilities for knowledge management. So I did that for many, many years, ran a practice within a large organization, technology consulting organization. But then I started to refine my focus in knowledge management much more around the needs of marketing and business development. The reason that I did that is I actually oversaw a group of folks that were kind of the best and the brightest for this organization. And their roles were not only to deliver projects, but it was also to respond to RFPs, do proposals, things like that. And the struggle was always, well, they had their kind of day job where they were actually building things, but then we also needed to respond to RFPs and generate new work. And so it was that finding that balance between billable time and responding to these RFPs. And so I started to focus heavily on what we needed to sell, and
not in the legal space per se, but just
in professional services. So law is very, very similar to technology selling. You have very, very smart people. Maybe you have some assets that you bring to bear. You have some experience, but it's all about getting those people who are the best and the brightest, who are the most qualified, not only to respond to RFPs, but more importantly, to actually actually do the work, and getting them to be able to be engaged. But also, most importantly, is empowering the people in the marketing and BD department to be less reliant on them to get to a great draft of an RFP. So that's what I've really been focused on, the better part of 15 years. So that's really where my passion is.
Yeah. And how did Icon get founded? How did that get started?
Yeah, so we actually started within as an entity within a larger entity way back in 2010, and we focused on the people experience aspect first, because in the technology consulting world, it's really all about submitting the CVs and the resumes and saying, hey, look, we have the best and brightest team, and we're going to build your amazing mobile, do digital transformation for you. So really we focused in on the people aspect first. So creating these amazing bios, and we actually partnered with a firm very early on. They took a liking to our ability to create these profiles, which ended up being attorney biographies. So it was a large law firm that really liked what we were doing in that space. And so we started to go really deep. Now, Icon started to evolve. It was something that we called the firm directory initially. But very quickly, what we found is that the people aspect is a fraction of the problem, right? And so as we started to deploy it, it was more embedded within an intranet. We started to engage more with marketing and BD folks, and they were like, yeah, it's nice, you have attorney bios, but really what we need is representative transactions. We need to be able to present our experience, our practices, our services, our industries, our tools, and we need to be able to bring all of that together. Right. And so that's really where the vision of Icon came to be, and we started, it was way back in 2015. The market, specifically legal, was not ready for the cloud, but we knew it was going there. So at that moment, we took a step back and said, hey, let's re-architect for the cloud, as well as let's introduce a whole slew of new scenarios that we wanted to support.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that, lawyers sell experience, but they haven't been very good at harnessing that experience and operationalizing that experience, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of what Icon does.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that there are strategies out there where, we do this matter profiling, right? And we expect the senior associate who billed the most time to come in and write this amazingly creative narrative. And we expect them to do that proactively, meaning we expect them to do that before we ever need that matter description. And that does not create the tension that we need. So our belief system is that the best time to profile a matter is when you actually need that matter. That's when you're going to get the best description. And the attorneys that write that description are much more appreciative. Now, that's one aspect of it. We do believe in proactive profiling, absolutely. But from the attorney's perspective, they're most motivated to write that amazing matter description when it's going to go into a proposal, or when it's going to go into a chamber submission or a legal 500 submission. So it's that moment in time that you need to capture, right? Knowledge management is all about having the right information available at the right time, right? And collecting that information usually is the challenge. And the right time to collect it is when they're authoring that proposal or that chamber submission.
Yeah. You're not creating the biographies. You're not creating the other aspects of the experience, the deals they've done, the cases they work on, all of that. You're simply making it easy for them to pull that all together and put that into an RFP or whatever else and send that out, right? Is that?
Yeah, so we actually do both. So we do have an experience management platform, but we do integrate with existing experience platforms.
Okay.
So depending upon where they're at in their kind of experience management journey, if they've already started that, they've been profiling matters for years, the best strategy for us is to integrate with that data source, pull it in, and just make it really easy for them to find that information, format it, create beautiful tombstones, create bullet layouts if they so choose. So we do both, but we do integrate with existing experience management platforms.
Yeah. And for people who aren't kind of familiar with this world, when you're talking about experience management, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so deals, cases, matters. So basically, from a marketing perspective, there's usually a quote marketing description or a proposal description where it's represented X in Y in $40 million acquisition of a global, well, maybe 40 million wouldn't be enough for a global entity, but it's that description of that particular matter. Now, the important thing about matter profiling is that, yes, there's that marketing description, but then there's all of these other facets of that matter. Who's the responsible attorney? Who's the relationship relationship attorney, the billing attorney? Who are the people that billed to it? How much time did they bill to that particular matter? What was the description of the matter at intake? What industry is it related to? So there are all these other facets of a matter that make it more discoverable when you're trying to find the best rep matters to include on a particular pitch or proposal.
Yeah. Are you helping law firms actually gather that experience data? I mean, I'm thinking about on the litigation side, for example. It's been my experience that a lot of law firms don't do a very good job of tracking all the litigation matters that they've been involved in, which lawyers, which clients, who've been opposing parties, all those kinds of aspects of a case.
Yeah.
Is that something that you help law firms pull together and make
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and litigation, I think that the easiest kind of experience profiling is in transactional work.
Yeah.
You know, that's the easiest stuff.
Right.
On the litigation side, because they're so long and so drawn out,
Yeah.
you know, our passion for those things can wane, right? So
Right.
whatever, and hopefully it's a positive outcome at the end of that. But I think at that moment that there's a positive outcome, I think everybody's just like, it's over. You know, we're done. We want to move on. But there are a lot of artifacts that you collect during litigation. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that we like to start with is the complaint itself, the complaint and the response. Those are two things where you can actually start to harvest some interesting information, at least about what the initial case is about, right? And so within our platform, we allow you to upload and reach in and pull in some of those artifacts to actually start to craft matter descriptions based on the outputs of that particular matter.
Yeah. So kind of walk me through the steps of what your platform does for, I'm assuming your main customers are the people who are at this conference,
Absolutely.
the marketing BD people at larger law firms, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what does your platform do for them, kind of in a very practical sense? Walk me through what it is you do.
Yeah, so it's primarily three things. So it's proposal automation, AI-based co-authoring, and then experience management for those that do not have an experience management platform. On the proposal side, so I wish I could visualize it. I think visualization is always the best. But imagine an environment where the first thing that you do is you create what we call a proposal workspace, and you put in some basic information about that. What is the title? What is the client? What is the due date? Who's the lead? Who's the lead attorney? You put in some basic information.
An RFP comes in or something.
Yeah, an RFP. Let's talk about an RFP.
To it. Yeah.
So there's a difference between these kind of proposals and RFPs. So let's talk about RFPs because it's a little bit more interesting and challenging. So you do that. You put in some basic information. So you come into this proposal workspace, and then what you do is you actually upload the documents that the client has provided to you. Most times there's like this opening solicitation that kind of talks about the structure of the RFP. Inevitably, there's going to be a questionnaire attached, whether it's Excel, PDF, or Word. You upload all of those documents, and then what you want to do is you need to shred those documents, right? So you need to say, okay, great. So I have all these documents that the client's provided. What is my response, right? So what do I need to include in my response? And so we provide tooling and AI tools that can read all of those documents, extract the question, and make a recommendation on essentially what your table of contents is, right? So it's going to be a series of questions. It's going to be like, well, who's your proposed team? So in that specific question, yes, you could come in and provide a text-based answer. More times than not, what you want to do is you want to personalize it. You want to make it part of your brand. So you want to include short bios, right? So you want to have their headshot, and you want to have their title and their location in a short bio. So we help stitch all of that together. So the author is in control of reaching into pre-built content and then also leveraging AI to help craft customized answers.
Yeah. You've been around. When did you say you launched in 2018? Was it or?
Yeah, so 2018 was Icon. Yeah, yeah.
And I know that I know because I was looking at your website this morning. There's a lot. You emphasize the fact that you're using AI and AI agents to perform a lot of the steps of this process.
Yeah.
Those are a relatively recent technology. So
Sure.
how were you doing it before, and when did you start incorporating AI into the process?
Yeah, I mean, I guess November 2023, back when ChatGPT launched, kind of changed everything. The interesting thing is that the challenges that we were trying to solve, we were just doing them in different ways. So there was this thing called SPACY and entity extraction, which was basically, I wouldn't say a precursor to LLMs, but it was the same concept. What we were trying to do was look at documents and extract summarizations and extract knowledge from that. Now that technology, not so good. Along comes obviously OpenAI, and they've really changed what is possible. So prior to that, we were still trying to do that. It was more manual. There were more manual activities. Like you had to actually open the document, read the questions, and say, okay, I want to respond to this question. I want to respond to that question. Where now what we're able to do is have this agent reads that document and says, hey, you are an expert on reading client RFPs. Your job is to extract the questions that the law firm is expected to answer. We get all that for free. Well, our clients get it for free. We have to pay for it, obviously, on the back end, but they get that for free, right? So we're able to extract all those questions. The next step is great. Now I need to answer that. So previously what we would do is we would provide a list of boilerplate content and previous documents where they would be able to search and find things. But now it's like, well, actually just generate me the answer. Go out and look at a corpus of past RFPs, go out and look at all of my experience, go out and look at all of my biographies, and bring back the best possible answer for me. So it really has just made the level of effort that the person needs to do to get their job done significantly reduced. But yeah, we're a huge believer in artificial intelligence, but we still believe there's a huge human element to this, right? That it's critical that we not think that we're trying to replace people. We're just trying to enhance them and help them optimize and personalize, humanize their responses.
Right. So you're going to pull together the pieces, serve it up, and then it's up to them to go through and put that human element into the finished product before it goes out the door.
Yeah, AI does a great job at providing an initial draft, but I think perfecting that, and in a lot of scenarios, like if you're going for a volume of experience, like use AI to recommend a volume of experience records, but there are going to be a few where it's like, no, this is perfect alignment. We want to make sure that the matter at hand, whether it's a transaction or specific litigation, we want to make sure that we have a specific piece of experience where we've done it before that maps directly to that. And that's really where, that the human aspect comes in.
Yeah. I'm speaking with Jason Noble of ICON in a conversation recorded live at the Legal Marketing Association annual meeting in New Orleans. We'll be right back with that, but first, please take a moment to hear about the sponsors who so generously support this podcast. Accounting just became the least stressful task on your firm's to-do list. Introducing Panther Accounting Plus, the full trust and operating accounting system built directly in Practice Panther. With Panther Accounting Plus, your firm can complete three-way reconciliations in just minutes, produce bar-compliant reports, and flow all financial activity into your firm's ledger in the same platform where you manage cases, bill clients, and get paid. Visit PracticePanther.com today to book a custom demo and discover the difference Practice Panther can make for your firm. Welcome back to Law Next, where I'm continuing my conversation with Jason Noble, President and Chief of Product Strategy at ICON. Before the break, Jason walked us through how the platform works and how AI has fundamentally changed what's possible in the proposal and RFP process. Now I want to talk about the broader landscape, how firms are handling this today, and what sets ICON apart. Many, many years ago, I worked briefly for a legal marketing and PR firm. And one of the things I remember from that experience was how tedious was the process of responding to an RFP. It was highly manual. This firm that I worked with at the time kind of developed an automation product, which was really just sort of like a template that you could just drop bios into and that kind of a thing. But it was still a highly tedious process. How are law firms doing it today? I mean, not those who are your customers, but I mean, are there still law firms doing this manually or?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we see. Usually they have, maybe if they're lucky enough to have an experience database, that's one thing. But inevitably, even those that have an experience database, there's always these kind of magical Excel documents that are floating around in the practices. That's like, no, this is actually our experience. So that's part of what they're doing. On the RFP side, recently there are these, and it's actually not so recently, 15 years or more, there are these RFP portals, right? And so oftentimes you need to provide your answers in an RFP portal. So it still is very much a manual process. I think step one that you mentioned, which was, hey, do we just have a branded template, a Word document? So that's kind of step one. But they still have to go in, manually read the responses, extract the questions, and then also coordinate with the experts. We were talking earlier about how the experts to respond to an RFP, those folks are usually the busiest because they're actually billing. They still need to manage that collaboration and communication to get the meat of the response done by the experts at hand. So it's a very manual process.
Yeah, I don't know the landscape very well. I assume you have some competitors out there.
Yeah.
So what distinguishes you from what your competitors are doing? How are you different? How are you better?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that it really comes. So my history is, obviously as an engineer to start, but then I moved into consulting, which is a billable engagement, right? So you say, hey, we put together a scope of work and we think it's going to take 160 hours and we're going to charge you X amount of dollars to make that happen. The assumptions that you have going into an engagement, they always change, right? So it goes from 160 hours to 200 hours. Then you need to have this uncomfortable conversation that says, hey, we know it was going to be 160 hours, but it's actually 200. So I need a little bit more money from you. I hated having those conversations.
Mhm.
They're the worst because it's not a partnership. It's like, well, yeah, you changed your mind. We changed our mind. We didn't make the right assumptions. So our model is different. Not only do we have what is the best technology stack to build off of, we also have an engagement model where it's a fixed fee engagement. We're not going to change order you, forever. We stay heavily engaged. So we are much more of a managed service. We are not a software as a service provider. We are a managed service. We bring the consultants, we bring the expertise, and we bring the commitment to keeping our clients happy. So that is, from a business model perspective, our differentiator, and we stand by that. Are we the cheapest solution? Absolutely not. But we know that the engagement model that we have is far superior to anything that we see out there. So that's more on the how we engage side. On the technology side, we have some of the best technology out there as it relates to creating pixel perfect pitches and proposals. And more importantly, we have the process. We know how to take your chaotic worlds of, manual everything, sanitize that and automate that and get amazing results. So, those are a couple of the differences that I like to focus in on.
Yeah. It's interesting that you come from a background of having worked in knowledge management, in addition, and I'm trying to kind of visualize this. I mean, are knowledge management and experience management kind of overlapping Venn diagram types of things,
Yeah.
or is one a subset of the other? How do they fit together?
Yeah, I think that, if knowledge management is this big circle, there are specializations inside of that, right? So knowledge management encompasses everything, where the knowledge management that we focus on are really, for marketing and business development. And while you can choose to profile your matters very specifically, with hundreds of attributes, the needs of marketing and business development is, I need to be able to find the best representative piece of experience, and I need to make sure that it has a description of the work that we've actually done. So to answer your question, knowledge management, big circle, marketing and BD kind of sits in here, but then you also probably have another section that talks about the actual work that you've done. So it's probably more of a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
That would be my answer. Yeah.
Yep. You talked about the service aspect of what you do, and I saw on your website it talks about the fact that you are not a self-serve SaaS tool. It says, we design, configure, and deploy your environment fully tailored to your operating model, your data, your branding, your terminology, white glove service from day one.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit more about that. I mean, how do you kind of tailor this to the particular law firm that you're working with?
Yeah. So fortunately, the great thing about the legal industry is that it is kind of precedence based, which means that they like to look and feel like each other, right? And so the good news is that the majority of the time, a proposal typically will have a title page, a table of contents, an executive summary, and about the firm, our capabilities, our people, pricing, etc. Right? So generally, that is the starting point for any given proposal. Now, RFP is totally different world, because you're you're dependent upon what the client is asking you for. But the good news is that we've seen these patterns consistently across all of our engagements. So we come to the table understanding probably what you're doing today. Then what we do is we start with a set of your best proposals, and we dissect those, because what we're looking inside of for those proposals are not the look and the feel and the font and all that stuff. We're looking at the content. What is the content that you typically present? In litigation-based proposals, there's always this approach or how we would go about this, right? So there's always some unique bespoke aspect to those elements. But a lot of the times there is similarities when it's in transactional or even practice-based work, general employment labor, how can we help you type stuff. So that's where we start, is we look at what they're doing today, and we also challenge them to say, okay, this is what you do today. Is this what you want to do for the next 5 years? Or is there something new that we should be incorporating? And that's where we start to bring best practices of what we've seen other firms do.
Yeah. Is there a lot of consistency across firms in the way that they handle this, or do you see significant differences? I mean, are some firms really good at it and some firms frankly really suck at it, or
we make them not suck?
Right. Well, I mean, you're not going to say that, but I mean,
yeah.
But I mean, have they all kind of learned from each other, and there's a lot of standards in the way firms are addressing this, or are what are the kind of the qualities of a firm that's doing a really exceptional job at business development? Maybe that's really what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does. I mean, I hope this isn't a cheap answer, but it does come down to the people, right? It does come down to leadership and their knowledge of technology and the art of the possible, right? So I think in working with many firms, we have a checklist that says, hey, these are the things that you need to be successful. Engagement is super important. You need at least a somebody or many somebodies that understand all of the business decisions of why we're configuring the solution in a certain way, why we're choosing to make the business process a certain way, right? So when you're doing intake of an RFP or of a proposal, what that intake form looks like, there needs to be justification for each question that we ask. So it does come down to the people. It really comes down to having a strong leader or several people in place that have a vision, working together with us. They come to us with a challenge, and we say, hey, this is how the best way to solve that problem is, and making sure that we're having strong communication. So it does come down to leadership and the people.
Yeah. As you've moved over the last couple of years to using AI more in the processes that you're delivering, how have law firms responded to that? How comfortable are they with that?
Yeah, I think it varies. I think that it depends upon the depth of the AI that we deploy to them. Recommendations, we're pretty good, right? Okay, so you use AI to recommend some matters. That's great. I think when it comes to ethical walls, confidential information, there's still a ton of skepticism as it relates to that. Now, we have tooling that allows you to mark a particular matter as confidential. We have ethical walls in place so that we can control that. So I think it depends on the depth of AI. So I'll give you an extreme example. One of the capabilities that we have is we have the ability to craft matter descriptions using a combination of the data that we collect from their financial system plus the billing narratives that their attorneys have provided, right? So that is the extreme example that, where your GC or the firm's GC will be like, hold on, you want to access our time and billing system and our billing notes? That's where there's some skepticism. But the way that we get around that is we allow our clients to pick which clients, which attorneys, and which matters we collect those billing notes for. Again, just to note, this is all optional stuff. I'm just talking about the extreme example where there's radical pushback. That's the more extreme example. But as it relates to finding content, maybe crafting descriptions or questions, they're usually good on that. Top concern is, okay, great. So you've used Gen AI. I've heard of hallucinations. How do we know that your solution isn't hallucinating? The way that we get around that is, first, our technology stack is retrieval augmented generation, which just basically means we go out, we find a bunch of matters, and we pass it into AI and say, hey, based on this set of matters, give me an answer.
Mhm.
So that's the first step, right? So we're using your data. The second step is every answer that's provided within Icon has a set of citations where you're able to go and look at the content that it actually used to generate that. Also, we put in notes that say, hey, this is a generated answer. You need to human review it. So I think with that tooling, just them knowing that, okay, it's using our data, you have controls in place that make sure that citations are there. You also have levers. There's something in AI models that you can pass in called temperature, which is basically how creative you want it to get, right? And so we allow you to dial that temperature up and down based on how creative you want to get. So, there's tooling around all these things that get people around the majority of their concerns.
Yeah. You mentioned access to billing data. Is part of responding to an RFP is putting together the pricing aspect of it all?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So that is one area where usually for the more sophisticated firms, there is a pricing team, meaning they are experts on pricing these particular matters. And their effort usually involves going out and attempting to find matters that have similar qualities, right? If it's a lit matter, the pricing is going to be, you have to go out and say, well, we've done this before and we think that it's kind of in this price range. Maybe we make it milestone based. Maybe we do some kind of AFA based approach. So it is part of that. And usually it's the pricing team that engages with the platform.
Yeah. Are you getting the sense that your customers are engaging in more creative pricing these days?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we have this concept that we call standard content, and there's always a piece of pricing, a piece of standard content for pricing, which is, typical rate card hourly rate stuff and other AFAs, whether it's milestone based or some type of outcome based pricing. So there's always hey, we work with you on your pricing. So that's very, very common.
Yeah. To what extent are firms in highlighting, in responding to an RFP, and I assume part of responding to an RFP is pushing their strengths vis-a-vis their competitors in some way? I don't know how explicit they are about that. But do you get the sense that firms are seeing that the competitive landscape has been changing because of AI over the last few years?
Yeah, and without getting into too many specifics, there's always here's the tooling that we provide to ensure that we're optimized, right? They always like to represent, we have tools behind the scenes that we're going to optimize your billing, like we're going to be the most efficient. And so there's always that aspect of highlighting how technologically innovative you are to make sure that you're providing the best client service.
Yeah. I've been struck being at this conference how little conversation there's been about some of the alternative models out there, like ALSPs, which are nothing new, but they've been around for a while. And I realize a lot of the matters that higher end firms are responding to are probably not ALSP type matters. But there's also the sort of AI native law firms that are coming along, and these MSOs that are coming along, and there's really kind of a changing landscape in terms of competition for large and elite law firms. And I'm wondering, I mean, are you seeing your customers kind of thinking about that or responding to that?
I think they are. I think that probably as an outside vendor, we probably don't necessarily have insight into their secret sauce and really, really what they're thinking. But it is something personally that I think a lot about. And honestly, just how we engage with the firms that because we have a lot of outside, not a lot, but we have outside counsel. The way that we choose to engage with them has dramatically changed since having tools available to us that were not previously available, right? So we're less inclined to go to outside counsel for a deep NDA review than we were in the past. So I would have to assume that our clients are looking at that heavily and looking at ways to ultimately reduce billable hours. I think so. It's fascinating. Ever since I've been in the legal industry, we've been talking about the death of the billable hour. It's always a topic.
Yeah.
And has it gone away?
I'm a lot older than you are. I've been hearing about my entire career, but it hasn't gone away. But it does seem like we are at a point where it does start to not make sense for a whole lot of kinds of matters right now. I mean, I think it's going to be harder and harder for firms to justify continuing to push up their rates and bill across the board by the hour when they're using AI more and more, and when they are streamlining what they do more and more. It just logically doesn't make sense, I think, for the firm or the client. But
Yeah, and so, so I have two thought processes. There's a pessimistic side of me, and then there's an optimistic side of me. And then, so the pessimistic is, hey, AI is going to replace everybody, and we just have AI respond to everybody. But the optimistic side of me, because I believe in employment, I want people to be employed. That's super important to
Right.
me personally. I think
Yeah.
the world. Um, but I just think that we're going to be asked to do more. Right. And so on our side, how we've changed our business is we've integrated some amazing AI tools into our whole development
Hmm.
deployment pipeline. What that allows me as a business owner to do is, the vast majority of the time when a client asks me, is this possible? If it's software, the answer is yes. The only constraint I used to have was, well, does my team have time to do that particular capability? So that just simply means that if you want a new capability that does this specific way, absolutely we can do that. And the amount of time that it takes us to do that is less. I think that that's going to percolate and be pervasive in every industry.
Hmm.
So the answer is going to be, yes, we can do that. Yes, we have tools that'll make it take less time, but we still need to have a human aspect to it. I just
Sure.
think that we're going to be able to do more.
Yeah.
I think that, to go far way out, time travel, who knows? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, if there is such a thing as time travel and somebody has figured it out, it's because they have some type of artificial intelligence where the human aspect is not the limiting factor.
Right. Well, I mean, as you've described, even the way your product works has evolved significantly over the last 3 years since
Massively. Yeah.
generative AI came on the scene. How does that continue to evolve? How does your product continue to evolve over the next 3 years, say?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first and foremost, we want to optimize our internal processes, right? So we want to become an AI first development shop. Super important. We're well on that journey and seeing, returns. I think that with any transformation, there's always kind of this J curve where you kind of see productivity down, and then, we're expecting it to just go through the roof.
Hmm.
And so, first and foremost, we need to transform our business itself. Then we always need to keep an eye out on, well, what is the business problem that we're trying to solve? How does that business problem change into the future? So the interesting thing about what we do today is we actually have all of this technology that helps a person write a document that is hopefully consumed by a person, right? We're
Hmm.
writing RFPs, we're responding, we're creating proposals. Hopefully a human actually reads that document. What if there's a world where, yes, the initial RFP might be crafted by some people on the client, but that gets shipped to an agent that wraps that thing up into an RFP? And then what if one of our clients uses Icon's agent mechanism to receive that RFP and automatically create a draft with zero human engagement,
Hmm.
right? So there's a lot of things that would have to happen. Both sides would want to play that game, but I do see a world where there's an agent that submits RFPs, and then there's an agent that says, oh, I can respond to that. Let me put together a draft. Now,
Hmm.
we always believe in human in the loop, so you're never going to want to have that agent automatically ship it out. You're going to want to have a person review it, and there's still a human aspect. But I do see a world where, there are agents talking to each other and actually maybe not doing commerce transactions, but actually having the communication between the two ends.
Yeah, it sounds like the hiring process these days. I mean, somewhere I saw some statistic about, you know, so many job ads are getting posted by AI, getting responded to by AI, and the resumes that are coming in are getting reviewed by AI, and there's
Yeah.
almost no humans in the loop anywhere along the whole process.
I would actually like to look at that because I don't know what the success rate of such a world would be.
Yeah, you have to
I might
wonder.
back out completely what I just said based on that analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, do you think that the concept of an RFP survives, maybe in a different form, but or does RFP itself become a kind of an outmoded way of hiring or finding outside counsel?
I think that there will always be an RFP. There will
Yeah.
always be a proposal. There will always be a need to communicate a client's needs and a vendor being able to say, hey, we can meet those needs and this is how we're going to meet it. I think that will always exist. How they get created, how they get responded to, I think will continuously evolve. I think one of the things that's amazing about AI, specifically in the code generation and kind of the technology space, is what it's doing is it's generating code, literally, a language that machines understand how to talk to, right? So it's amazing at generating human-based content, but there's a truth that needs to be added to that content. Like with code, you can literally create tests that test that code to validate that the code that the AI wrote is actually good. And that's what it does. It writes the code, then it writes a test to make sure that it actually accomplishes what it was trying to do. In the RFP world, I think that how do we test content? How do we test the validity of the answer? That's actually one of the things that we're working on, and it's a pretty significant challenge.
Yeah. Jason, what else are you working on? What else are you thinking about? What else you want people to know about what you do?
I mean, so the things that I think about, quite honestly, the most important thing to me is keeping clients happy, right? That really is. I mean, I'm a technologist by trade, and I'm dorky by trade. But I think about those things a lot. But the things that keep me up at night is, how do I keep all of our clients happy? How do I keep all of them engaged? And that's the team that I've built out to make sure that we have an infrastructure to do that. So those are the things that I worry about. If something keeps me up at night, is that client happy?
That's a good thing to worry about.
Yep.
Well, thanks a lot for sitting down and talking to me. I really appreciate it.
It was a great conversation.
Enjoyed talking to you. Thanks for joining us for today's show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to share your own thoughts or comments, please drop me an email, ambrogi@gmail.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn or other social media. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. LawNext is a production of LawNext Media. I'm your host, Bob Ambrogi. I hope you'll join us again next time for another episode of Law Next.